Hey guys, tonight we're tackling something heavier than your student loan debt and more confusing than your uncle's Facebook posts. How the ancient Egyptians actually built the pyramids. Not the Hollywood version with laser beams and secret alien contractors. Not the sanitized, they just worked really hard textbook explanation. I mean the real, back-breaking, sun-scorching, sand in every crevice ordeal that somehow resulted in giant, perfect stone triangles big enough to make modern engineers cry. This is ancient Egypt, and everything, and I mean everything, is about to get dusty. So before we march into the desert and start dragging multi-ton limestone blocks like it's leg day for the entire civilization, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy historically accurate suffering. Leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is. I'm guessing it's either way past your bedtime or you're ignoring an email you should have answered 8 hours ago. Either way, I support it. Now, dim those lights, switch on a fan for that gentle background hum, and get comfortable, maybe even wrap yourself in a blanket, because we're about to talk about a society that built skyscrapers before the invention of the wheelbarrow. You're going to feel very appreciative of modern tools by the end of this. Let's pause for a second. Have you ever wondered what it actually felt like to help build a pyramid? How many people does it take to pull a stone block the size of a car? Did they get paid? Or was the compensation just not dying of heat stroke? Did workers really eat bread and beer for every meal? How do you keep morale up when your job is literally move that rock, no, that bigger one? And most importantly, could you survive a day working under a sun so brutal it makes your air conditioner whisper, "Good luck, buddy"? And now, congratulations, you've just woken up in ancient Egypt. It's early morning. The air already feels like an oven. Your linen clothing is stuck to you in places you didn't know linen could stick. A foreman is shouting orders in a language you don't understand. Someone hands you a rope thicker than your arm. And towering above you is the half-finished pyramid, a reminder that your entire day will be spent hauling rocks that have no respect for your spine. You wake up before dawn because you have to. Sleeping past sunrise means waking up in what's essentially a mud brick oven. Your house, if you can call it that, is a small rectangular structure made of mud bricks that bake in the sun all day and radiate heat all night. There's no air conditioning, no fans, no ice. Not even a proper breeze, because your village is situated in the Nile Valley, where the air just sits there, hot and heavy, and waiting to suffocate you. The pre-dawn hours are the only tolerable time of day. The temperature has dropped to maybe 70 degrees Fahrenheit, 21 degrees Celsius, which feels absolutely frigid compared to the 110 degrees Fahrenheit, 43 degrees Celsius, you'll be experiencing in about 6 hours. This is your window. This is when you can move without feeling like you're being slowly cooked alive. So you wake up when the sky is still dark, when the stars are still visible, when the only sound is the distant barking of feral dogs and the shuffling of your neighbours, who are also waking up because everyone with sense gets up before the sun. You sleep on a bed frame, if you're lucky enough to own one, made of wood with rope webbing stretched across it. No mattress, just rope, and a wooden headrest that serves as your pillow, which is about as comfortable as sleeping with your head on a brick. The Egyptians believe this headrest keeps scorpions and other creatures from crawling into your ears while you sleep, which is either practical wisdom or psychological warfare against ever sleeping soundly. You've gotten used to it, the same way you've gotten used to everything else that's uncomfortable, which is everything. Your blanket, a thin linen sheet, is already soaked with sweat even though you just woke up. The air inside your house is stale and hot, still holding yesterday's heat. You can feel sand on your skin, in your hair, between your toes. There's always sand. You went to sleep with sand on you. and you're waking up with more sand on you because it seeps through the walls and the reed mat roof and just materializes out of thin air, apparently. You sit up, careful not to bang your head on the low ceiling. Your house is maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. It's not built for standing fully upright or moving freely. It's built for not dying of exposure, and even that's questionable on the hottest days. The walls are thick mud brick, which helps insulate during the day, but helps is a strong word. It's still unbearably hot, just slightly less unbearably hot than being outside in direct sunlight. Your body aches. Every morning, your body aches. Your back is a disaster from yesterday's stone hauling. Your shoulders are locked up. Your hands are raw and calloused from rope burn. Your feet are blistered from walking on hot sand in inadequate sandals. You're maybe 25 years old, but you feel 50. This is what manual labor in extreme heat does to a human body. It ages you in dog years. You swing your legs off the bed and your feet touch the packed dirt floor. It's already warm. The ground retains heat like a battery, releasing it slowly overnight and then soaking it back up the moment the sun rises. You feel around in the dark for your sandals, simple reed sandals that last maybe a month before falling apart, and check them carefully for scorpions. This isn't paranoia, this is survival. Scorpions love dark, enclosed spaces, and your sandals qualify. You shake them out, hear nothing scuttle away, and cautiously put them on. Your wife is stirring next to you. Your children, 3 of them, ranging from 3 to 10 years old, are sleeping against the far wall in a pile of limbs and linen. They'll wake up soon, when you light the small oil lamp that serves as your only light source. The lamp burns castor oil and produces a weak, flickering flame that barely illuminates anything but at least lets you see where you're walking. You step outside into the pre-dawn darkness. The air is marginally cooler out here, and you take a deep breath. The village is waking up. You can see other workers emerging from their houses, silhouettes in the darkness, preparing for another day of the same thing you did yesterday and will do tomorrow and the day after that, until you die or become too injured to work, whichever comes first. The sky is beginning to lighten on the eastern horizon. You have maybe 30 minutes before the sun breaks the horizon and the temperature starts its inexorable climb toward a surface of the sun. You need to eat something, gather your tools, and start the walk to the pyramid construction site. The site is about a mile away, and you need to be there when the foreman starts assigning work crews. Being late means no work assignment, which means no rations, which means your family doesn't eat today. You look at the horizon, at the first hint of light, and you feel dread settle into your stomach. Another day, another 12 hours of hauling stone in the heat. Another day of pain and exhaustion and sand and thirst. Another day of surviving just enough to do it again tomorrow. The sun is coming. And the sun, in ancient Egypt, is not your friend, it's your enemy, your torturer, and the god Ra, who you're supposed to worship, but mostly just fear. Because the sun doesn't care about you. It just burns and burns and burns until you're nothing but dried leather and broken bones. Welcome to morning in ancient Egypt. It's about to get so much worse. Let's talk about where you live, which is generous to call architecture. It's mud bricks, dried Nile mud, mixed with straw, formed into blocks and stacked into walls. The roof is reed mats or palm fronds. There are no windows because glass hasn't been invented for common use. And besides, windows would just let in more heat and sand. Your floor is packed dirt. Your furniture consists of a wooden bed frame with rope webbing, no mattress, just the rope and that wooden headrest that's somehow supposed to be a pillow. This is your house. This is where you live with your wife and 3 children. All 5 of you, in one room, roughly 100 square feet. There's no privacy, no separate sleeping areas, no my room or your room, just one communal space where everyone exists together 24/7. The children sleep on reed mats on the floor. You and your wife get the bed frame, which is slightly elevated and therefore slightly safer from scorpions and snakes that occasionally wander in looking for cool places to hide. The walls are about 2 feet thick. This is intentional. Thick walls provide insulation against the heat. During the day, the sun bakes the outer layer of the walls, but the thickness prevents the heat from penetrating all the way through immediately. It's a delayed heat transfer system that means your house is only unbearably hot instead of instantly lethal. At night, those same walls radiate the stored heat back into the interior, which means it never actually cools down inside. You're living in a thermal battery that's always charging or discharging, never neutral. The door is wood if you can afford it, or a woven reed mat that hangs in the doorway. There's no lock because what are you going to lock? You don't own anything worth stealing. Your possessions fit in a single basket. A few linen garments, some rope, a wooden bowl, a grinding stone for grain, maybe a bronze knife if you're lucky. That's it. That's everything you own. Thieves would enter your house, look around, and leave disappointed. The roof is the weakest point structurally. It's made from palm fronds or reed mats laid across wooden beams. This provides shade, which is crucial, but it's not waterproof when the rare rain comes. And in Egypt, rain is rare. Water drips through the roof and turns your dirt floor into mud. The roof also doesn't stop sand. Wind blows sand through the gaps between fronds, creating a constant rain of fine particles that coat everything. You sweep daily. It doesn't matter. The sand returns immediately, like it's personally offended by your efforts. There's a small courtyard outside where you do most of your actual living. This is where you cook, where you eat, where you do household tasks. Cooking indoors is impractical because fire plus enclosed space plus heat equals death by heat stroke. So you have a small outdoor area with a clay oven, basically a dome made of mud with an opening for fuel and a flat top for cooking. You burn dried animal dung for fuel because wood is scarce and expensive. The dung burns hot and relatively clean, but your food always has a faint undertone of cooked over poop fire, which you've learned to ignore. The courtyard is also where you keep your animals, if you have any. Maybe a goat, maybe some chickens. These animals are theoretically yours, but actually belong to the village or the temple or the pharaoh. Ownership is complicated in ancient Egypt. The animals provide milk, eggs, occasionally meat. They also provide more work because they need feeding and care, and they attract flies, and their waste needs to be cleaned up and dried for fuel. Everything is circular. Everything has multiple uses. Nothing is wasted because waste means death. Storage is a problem. You can't refrigerate food, so everything must be dried, salted, or consumed immediately. You keep grain in large pottery jars, sealed with mud to keep out rodents and insects. This works about 60% of the time. The other 40% of the time, you open your grain jar and find it full of weevils, which you then have to pick out grain by grain before grinding it into flour. And sometimes you don't bother picking them all out, because protein is protein, and you can't afford to be picky. The house has no plumbing, no running water, no toilet. You fetch water from the Nile daily, carrying it in pottery jars balanced on your head or shoulders. The water is murky, full of sediment, probably contaminated with parasites, but it's what you have. You let it settle, pour off the clearer water from the top, and use that for drinking and cooking. The toilet situation is even more primitive. You have a spot outside the village where everyone goes. There's no sewage system, just sand that gets covered with more sand. It's unsanitary and disgusting, but again, it's what you have. Ventilation is minimal. The door opening provides some air circulation, but not much. The air inside is stale and hot and smells like unwashed bodies, cooking smoke, and animal dung. You're nose blind to it because you live in it constantly. But if someone from the modern world entered your house, they'd gag. The smell is a physical presence, thick and inescapable. At night, you light an oil lamp if you can afford the oil. More often, you just sit in darkness because oil is expensive and darkness is free. The darkness is actually preferable. Sometimes you can't see the sand coating everything, can't see the cracks in the walls where insects and snakes might enter, can't see the general squalor of your living conditions. Ignorance, in this case, is literally bliss. Your house is not a home in the way modern people think of homes. It's not comfortable. It's not clean. It's not a place you want to spend time. It's a survival structure, a minimal shelter that keeps the sun off your head during the hottest part of the day and provides a place to collapse in exhaustion at night. That's it. That's the entire point of your house. And yet, it's yours. Sort of. You built it with your own hands, mixing mud and straw, forming bricks, stacking them, creating walls. It's not much, but it's more than some people have. In a world where most people own nothing, having a mud brick box with a reed roof is actually a sign of relative stability. That's not comforting, but it's true. If you thought you could escape the sand, you were wrong. It's in your house because the walls are literally made of sand and mud. It's in your bed. It's in your food. It's in your hair, your ears, your teeth. The desert isn't just outside. It's inside. It's in your lungs. It's in your soul. Every morning you wake up with a layer of fine dust coating your skin. You sweep it out of your house daily, and it's back within hours because the wind doesn't care about your feelings. Sand is your constant companion, your eternal enemy, and the defining feature of your existence. You can't escape it. You can't avoid it. You can only coexist with it and slowly go insane from its presence. It's like living with the world's most passive-aggressive roommate who never leaves and constantly makes messes but somehow pays rent by just existing. Let's talk about how sand gets into everything. The wind in the Nile Valley is persistent, not always strong, but always present. It picks up fine particles from the desert and carries them everywhere. These particles are so fine they pass through woven reed mats, through gaps in mud bricks, through cloth, through your pores. You could seal yourself in a jar and sand would still find a way in. It's inevitable. It's universal. It's maddening. You sweep your house every morning with a bundle of palm fronds tied together your broom. You sweep the sand into a pile, scoop it up, and throw it outside. This takes 10 minutes. By evening, there's a visible layer of sand coating your floor again. By the next morning, it looks like you never swept at all. It's Sisyphean labor, except Sisyphus only had to deal with one boulder. You're dealing with billions of microscopic boulders that regenerate constantly. The sand gets in your food during preparation. You're grinding grain on a stone quern, a flat stone with another stone rolled over it to crush the grain into flour. Both stones are made of sandstone or granite. As you grind, tiny fragments of stone break off and mix with the flour. You can't see them. You can't separate them out. They're just in there. So when you bake bread, you're baking stone fragments into the bread. When you eat the bread, you're eating stone. This slowly grinds down your teeth. By age 30, your molars are flat, worn down to the gums. Dental health is universally terrible, and sand is the primary culprit. You try to protect food by keeping it in sealed pottery jars. This helps, but sand is patient and determined. It finds microscopic cracks in the pottery. It infiltrates during the brief moments when you open the jar to remove food. There's always a gritty texture to everything you eat. Always. You've accepted this. You chew carefully, trying to avoid biting down hard on stone fragments that might crack a tooth. You're not always successful. Sand gets in your clothing. You wear a simple linen kilt, a rectangular piece of linen wrapped around your waist and tied. The linen is woven from flax, and it's relatively fine, but it's not sandproof. Sand particles work their way into the weave and stay there. When you move, the sand-impregnated cloth rubs against your skin, creating chafing. You develop raw patches on your waist, your thighs, your groin. The chafing sometimes becomes infected, especially when combined with sweat and dirt. You treat it by doing nothing because what are you going to do? Stop wearing clothes? Stop moving? Both are non-options. Your hair is full of sand. You keep your head shaved. Most Egyptian men do specifically to avoid lice, but also because hair becomes a sand trap. Even with a shaved head, sand accumulates on your scalp. You feel it constantly, a gritty coating that you can scratch off with your fingernails. It's disgusting and uncomfortable, and there's nothing you can do about it. Some people wear wigs made of human hair or plant fibers, but wigs are hot and expensive and also fill with sand, so you've skipped that particular misery. Sand gets in your eyes. This is the worst part. The wind blows sand particles into your face, and some inevitably land in your eyes. You blink reflexively, but blinking just grinds the sand against your cornea. Your eyes water, trying to flush out the irritant. Sometimes it works. Sometimes the sand stays, scratching and hurting until you can rinse your eyes with water, which you have to fetch from the Nile, which takes time you don't have. Eye infections are common. Trachoma, a bacterial infection that can cause blindness, is endemic in Egypt, spread partly by flies, but aggravated by sand irritation. You're walking to the work site, and your sandals, simple reed sandals, are constantly filling with sand. Every few steps, you have to stop, take off your sandal, shake it out, and put it back on. This adds significant time to your commute. You could walk barefoot, but the sand gets hot enough during the day to burn your feet. The ground temperature can exceed 150 degrees Fahrenheit, 65 degrees Celsius, in direct sunlight. Your sandals provide minimal protection, but it's better than nothing. At the work site, you're hauling stones across sand. The sand makes everything harder. The wooden sledges sink into it. You have to pull harder to overcome the resistance. Someone pours water on the sand in front of the sledge to pack it down and reduce friction. This is actually effective, and archaeologists have confirmed that ancient Egyptians used this technique. But it means you're walking on wet sand, which sticks to your feet and legs, coating you in mud that dries into a cement-like crust that you'll be scraping off tonight. During breaks, you sit on the sand because there's nowhere else to sit. The sand is hot. It burns through your linen kilt. You shift constantly, trying to find a position that's less unbearable. There isn't one. You close your eyes for just a moment, and sand blows into your face. You're starting to wonder if the sand is sentient and personally targeting you. At night, you lie on your rope bed, and you can feel sand in the rope fibers. You can feel it on your wooden headrest. You can feel it on your thin linen sheet. You close your eyes and know that tomorrow will be the same. More sand. Always more sand. An endless, eternal, inescapable presence that defines your existence. The desert isn't romantic. It's not beautiful. It's hostile and unforgiving, and it's trying to bury you one grain at a time. You're fighting a losing battle against geology itself. The desert was here before you, and it will be here after you're dead and buried. And ironically, the sand will preserve your body through natural desiccation, so even in death, you can't escape it. Sand, it's everywhere, and you hate it. The Nile River is everything. It's where you bathe. It's where you get drinking water. It's where you catch fish. It's where you do laundry. Though laundry is a strong word for beating your one linen garment against rocks. It's also where hippos live, hippos that kill more people than crocodiles, by the way, and where crocodiles definitely also live, and bilharzia, a parasitic disease that comes from snails in the water. The Nile gives life, and the Nile absolutely will take it away if you're not careful. Let's start with the basics. The Nile is the only reason Egypt exists. Without the Nile, this entire region would be uninhabitable desert. With the Nile, it's barely habitable desert with a thin strip of green agricultural land on either side of the river. This strip, the Nile Valley, is where everyone lives, farms, and builds pyramids. The river is the center of everything. All life flows from it, literally and figuratively. You live maybe a quarter mile from the river. This is close enough to access it daily, but far enough that when the annual flood comes, your house doesn't get washed away. Probably, the flood is unpredictable. Some years it's perfect, depositing rich silt on the fields without destroying villages. Other years it's too high and destroys everything. Other years it's too low and there's famine. The Nile controls your fate more than any human authority. Every morning, you or your wife or one of your children makes the walk to the river, carrying pottery jars to fetch water. You need water for drinking, cooking, and making mud bricks. You go through several jars per day. The trip is time-consuming and exhausting, especially when you're carrying full jars back uphill. Women typically do this work, balancing jars on their heads with impressive skill. You've tried it. You're terrible at it. The jar falls, breaks, and now you're short a jar and have to make or trade for a new one. The water you fetch isn't clean by any modern standard. It's brown with suspended sediment. There are plants and algae floating in it, small fish, probably parasites. You can see things moving in the water if you look closely, which you try not to do because ignorance is bliss. You pour the water into large storage jars at home and let it settle overnight. The sediment sinks to the bottom, and you carefully pour off the clearer water from the top for drinking. This helps, but it doesn't eliminate the parasites or bacteria. You're going to drink them anyway because the alternative is dying of thirst. The Nile is your bathing facility. There's no bathhouse, no private bathroom, no shower. You wade into the river, splash water on yourself, maybe rub your skin with natron, a naturally occurring salt that acts as soap. The natron is harsh and dries out your skin, but it does remove dirt and oil. You're bathing in the same water that everyone else is bathing in, that animals are drinking from and defecating in, that dead things are decomposing in upstream. But it's wet, and it cools you down, and that's enough. Bathing in the Nile is dangerous. Crocodiles are everywhere. They're sacred to Sobek, the crocodile god, which doesn't make them any less likely to eat you. Nile crocodiles can grow to 16 feet long and weigh over 1,000 pounds. They're ambush predators that wait in murky water for prey to come to the river's edge. You've seen them take dogs, goats, occasionally people. You watch the water carefully before entering. You bathe quickly. You stay in groups because crocodiles are less likely to attack multiple people. Probably, hippos are worse than crocodiles. This surprises people who think hippos are cute, chubby river horses. Hippos are enormous, aggressive, territorial, and responsible for more human deaths in Africa than any other large animal. A male hippo can weigh 4,000 pounds and run surprisingly fast on land. They have massive jaws and teeth that can bite a person in half. They're especially dangerous during mating season or when protecting calves. You avoid areas where hippos are known to congregate. If you see a hippo, you leave immediately. You don't argue with hippos. Hippos always win. The Nile is also where you catch fish, which is a crucial protein source. You use nets woven from papyrus or flax. You cast the net into the river, wait, pull it back, and hope there's something edible inside. The Nile has dozens of fish species: tilapia, catfish, Nile perch. Some are delicious. Some are bony and barely worth eating. You're not picky. Any fish is good fish. You clean the fish by the river, removing guts and scales, then take them home to cook or dry for storage. Fishing is also dangerous. You're wading in water, bent over, focused on your net. This is when crocodiles attack. You've heard stories about fishermen who disappeared, just gone, dragged under the water, never seen again. The Nile takes people regularly. It's accepted as part of life. You fish carefully, watching the water, ready to run at the first sign of movement. The river is also your transportation network. There are no roads in the modern sense, just footpaths between villages. Long-distance travel happens on the river. Boats made from bundled papyrus reeds float downstream with the current or sail upstream using the prevailing north winds. It's an elegant system that moves goods and people efficiently. You've never been on a boat. You can't swim. Most Egyptians can't, which seems insane given that you live on a river. But swimming is a skill for the wealthy who have time to learn it. Falling in the river means drowning or getting eaten, so you stay on shore. The annual flood is the defining event of the Egyptian year. Every summer, monsoon rains in the Ethiopian highlands cause the Nile to swell. By July, the water level rises dramatically, spilling over the banks and flooding the valley. This flood deposits black silt, incredibly fertile soil across the fields. This silt is why Egypt can support agriculture in the desert. The flood is celebrated and feared. Too much water destroys villages and crops. Too little water means famine. The flood must be just right, which is why Egyptians obsess over water levels and make offerings to Hapi, the god of the Nile flood. During the flood season, the fields are under water. You can't farm. This is when you're conscripted to build pyramids. It's government employment during the agricultural off-season. You resent this deeply, but you also understand the logic. The state needs projects to keep people employed and fed during the flood. Building pyramids accomplishes both. It's still terrible, but at least you're getting rations. The Nile also carries disease. Schistosomiasis, also called bilharzia, is endemic. It's caused by parasitic flatworms that live in snails in the river. The larvae penetrate your skin when you wade in the water. They migrate to your blood vessels and lay eggs that cause chronic illness, abdominal pain, bloody urine, liver damage, eventually death. There's no cure in ancient Egypt. You might have it right now and not know it. Most people do. It's just another thing trying to kill you slowly. The river is beautiful in its way. At dawn, the water reflects the pink sky. Birds, herons, ibises, ducks wade in the shallows. The air is cooler near the water. For a brief moment, before the heat becomes unbearable, the Nile is almost peaceful. Almost. But you're not here for peace. You're here to fetch water, to bathe, to fish, to survive. The Nile provides everything you need to live. It also provides crocodiles, hippos, parasites, and drowning hazards. It's the ultimate abusive relationship. You can't live with it, can't live without it. You fill your jars, balance them carefully, and start the walk back home. Your back aches, your feet hurt, there's sand in your sandals. But you have water, which means you'll survive another day. The Nile has given you life one more time. Tomorrow, you'll do it again. Your breakfast is bread and beer. Every day. That's it. The bread is made from emmer wheat ground on stone, which means there are stone fragments in the flour, which means your teeth are being slowly ground down with every bite. By age 30, if you make it to 30, your teeth are worn to nubs. The bread is dense, hard, and often mouldy, because storing food in the heat is impossible. The beer is thick, lukewarm, and nutritious. It's basically liquid bread with low alcohol content. You drink it because the water might kill you faster. Let's talk about bread, which is the foundation of your diet and also the reason your dental health is a catastrophe. Emmer wheat is the primary grain in Egypt. It's hardy, drought-resistant, and grows well in the Nile silt. You don't grow it yourself, you receive it as payment for your labor. The grain comes in the form of whole kernels that you must process into flour. Processing grain is brutal work. You have a stone quern, essentially two large flat stones. You place grain on the bottom stone and grind it with the top stone, using a circular motion that engages your entire upper body. This takes hours. Your arms burn, your back screams. And the whole time, you're creating flour that's contaminated with stone particles because the grinding stones are wearing down too. The flour is gritty and grey. You mix it with water to form dough, no yeast, or sometimes wild yeast if you're lucky enough to have a sourdough starter going. The dough is shaped into flat rounds and baked in your outdoor clay oven. The bread comes out dense, heavy, and hard. It's not fluffy or soft. It's a weapon. You could kill someone with this bread. You could use it as a construction material. It's barely edible, but it's calories, and calories are survival. You tear off a piece of bread to eat. It requires significant jaw strength. You have to chew carefully because if you bite down wrong, you might hit a stone fragment and crack a tooth. This has happened before. A cracked tooth is a death sentence. It gets infected. The infection spreads to your jaw, and you die in agony. There's no dentistry, no fillings, no root canals, just pain and death. So you chew carefully, always alert, always aware that breakfast is a minefield. The bread is slightly stale because you baked it yesterday or the day before. You can't bake fresh bread every day, it's too time-consuming and fuel is expensive. So you bake a batch, store it in a pottery jar, and eat it over several days. Each day, it gets harder and more stale. By day 3, you're basically gnawing on a bread-shaped rock. You dip it in beer to soften it, which helps marginally. Speaking of beer, ancient Egyptian beer is not what you think. It's thick, porridge-like, nutritious, and contains maybe 2 to 3% alcohol. It's made from partially baked bread that's crumbled into water, fermented with wild yeast, and sometimes flavoured with dates or honey. The result is a chunky, grainy beverage that you drink through a straw to filter out the solid bits. The straw is made from hollow reed. You suck beer through this straw while solid particles settle at the bottom of your cup. The beer tastes sour and yeasty with a hint of sweetness if it's been flavoured. It's not refreshing. It's not delicious. But it's nutritious. It contains B vitamins, minerals, and calories from the fermented grain. More importantly, the fermentation process kills some of the harmful bacteria that might be in the water. Beer is safer than water, which is why everyone, men, women, children, drinks it daily. You receive beer as part of your work rations. An adult worker gets about a gallon of beer per day. It sounds like a lot, it's not. You're working in extreme heat and losing fluids constantly. You need that gallon. So here you are, sitting in your courtyard in the pre-dawn darkness, eating rock-hard bread and drinking lukewarm, chunky beer through a straw. This is breakfast. This is every breakfast. There's no variety, no options, no what do you feel like today. You eat bread and beer because that's what there is. You'll eat the same thing for lunch. You'll eat it for dinner. You'll eat it tomorrow and the next day and every day until you die. The monotony is crushing. You fantasize sometimes about other foods, about meat, which you eat maybe a few times a year during festivals, about honey, which is incredibly expensive and rare, about fresh vegetables and fruits. But these are luxuries for the wealthy. You're not wealthy. You're a labourer. You get bread and beer and occasionally some onions if you're lucky. Your children are eating the same breakfast, sitting beside you. Your 10-year-old is already showing signs of tooth wear from years of eating gritty bread. Your youngest only 3, struggles with the hard bread, and mostly drinks beer diluted with water. They'll grow up eating this same meal every day. They'll never know anything different. This is their normal. This is your normal. This is Egypt. You finish your meager breakfast, maybe 300 to 400 calories total, which is nowhere near enough for the physical labor you're about to do, but it's all you get until the midday break. Your stomach is already growling. Your mouth tastes like sour beer and gritty bread. You take a sip of water from your jar, swish it around to clear the worst of the taste, and spit it out into the sand. The sun is rising. You can see orange light on the horizon. The temperature is already climbing. You need to get moving, need to reach the work site before the foreman starts assigning tasks. You stand, brush the crumbs off your linen kilt, check your sandals one more time for scorpions, and start walking. Your breakfast hasn't given you energy so much as postponed starvation for a few hours. You'll be hungry again within 2 hours. You'll be desperately hungry by midday. But you'll keep working because stopping means not getting paid, and not getting paid means tomorrow there's no bread and beer at all. This is life in ancient Egypt. You're not living, you're surviving, meal to meal, day to day, stone by stone. And breakfast, that hard, gritty, tooth-destroying bread, is just the beginning of another terrible day. But at least you're not starving. Yet, you're a pyramid builder. Not by choice, this is what poor people do during the inundation season, when the Nile floods and farming is impossible. You report to a work site where thousands of other workers are gathered. Your job is simple. Move enormous blocks of limestone from the quarry to the pyramid. Each block weighs around 2.5 tons. You don't have machinery. You have ropes, wooden sledges, ramps, and your back. And your foreman, who's screaming at you to move faster because Pharaoh is immortal and divine, but apparently his construction schedule isn't. The work site is chaos organized by shouting. There are maybe 20,000 workers here during peak season. Laborers like you, skilled stonecutters, engineers, supervisors, priests who perform rituals, and scribes who track everything with obsessive detail. The site is massive, covering acres of desert. The pyramid itself is a work in progress, rising from the sand like a geometric mountain. It's already 200 feet tall, and it's not even half finished. The scale is incomprehensible. You're an ant working on an anthill designed by giants. You arrive at dawn, joining a mass of other workers streaming toward the site. Everyone's wearing the same thing: linen kilts, maybe a linen head covering, reed sandals. No shirts, because it's going to be 110 degrees Fahrenheit by midday, and shirts would be torture. You're already sweating, and the sun hasn't fully risen yet. The anticipation of the heat is almost worse than the heat itself because you know what's coming. The foreman assigns you to a crew. There are 40 men in your crew, and your job today is to move a limestone block from the quarry to the base of the pyramid, a distance of maybe 400 yards. The block has already been cut and roughly shaped by skilled stoneworkers. It's sitting on a wooden sledge, which is basically a large flat platform with runners on the bottom like a sled. Ropes are attached to the front of the sledge. Your job is to pull. You and 39 other men line up along the ropes. The rope is thick, rough, and already stained with the blood and sweat of previous crews. You wrap it around your shoulders and back, creating a harness. The foreman shouts instructions. Everyone leans forward, takes the weight, and pulls. The block doesn't move. You pull harder. Still nothing. The foreman screams at you to pull together, to coordinate. Someone starts a rhythmic chant, something about Pharaoh's glory and the god's favor. You don't care about the words. You care about the rhythm because it helps everyone pull at the same moment. Finally, the sledge lurches forward. The block is moving, inch by agonizing inch. The rope cuts into your shoulders, even through your linen kilt padding. Your feet dig into the sand, searching for traction. Your thighs burn. Your back feels like it's going to snap. This is the first pull of the day, and you're already exhausted. Men ahead of you are pouring water on the sand in front of the sledge. This isn't kindness, it's physics. Wet sand is firmer and creates less friction than dry sand. The sledge moves more easily over wet sand, which means less pulling effort, which means the job gets done faster. Archaeologists have actually tested this and confirmed it works. Ancient Egyptians understood tribology, the science of friction, even if they didn't have a word for it. They just knew wet sand helped, so they used wet sand. You pull for 50 yards, then stop for a break. Everyone's breathing hard. Someone collapses, just drops to his knees, gasping. The foreman yells at him to get up. He doesn't. One of the crew drags him to the shade and pours water on his face. Heat exhaustion, probably. He'll recover, or he won't. The crew continues without him because the block needs to move, and the foreman doesn't care about individual suffering. You pull again. The sun is higher now, and the heat is building. Your vision blurs from the combination of sweat and glare. The desert sand reflects sunlight directly into your eyes. You squint constantly. Your eyes water. Everyone's wearing kohl eyeliner, which helps reduce glare, but it's not enough. The sun is a physical assault, pressing down on you like a weight. Halfway to the pyramid base, disaster strikes. The sledge hits a depression in the sand and tilts. The block shifts. For a terrifying moment, it looks like the block will fall off the sledge entirely, crushing anyone nearby. Everyone scrambles backward. The foreman screams to hold the ropes, to stabilize the load. You lean back on the rope with all your weight, praying to whatever gods might be listening that the block stays put. It does, barely. The crew spends 20 minutes carefully repositioning the block and stabilizing the sledge. Those 20 minutes feel like hours because you're just standing in the sun, roasting, waiting. Finally, you continue. The pyramid base is close now. You can see the massive structure rising above you. Limestone blocks stacked with impossible precision. Some blocks have hieroglyphs carved into them, marks from the quarry, probably, or dedications to gods. You don't care. You just want this block off your rope so you can rest. You reach the base. The block is unloaded from the sledge by a different crew using wooden levers and ramps. Your job is done for this block. You've moved it 400 yards over the course of 3 hours. One block. And there are approximately 2.3 million blocks in the Great Pyramid. You're not building the Great Pyramid that was built centuries ago, but you're building another pyramid. And it requires hundreds of thousands of blocks. Your single block is a drop in an ocean of stone. The foreman assigns your crew to go back and get another block. You want to die. Your body is screaming. Your shoulders are raw from rope burn. Your feet are blistered. Your throat is so dry it feels like sandpaper. But you turn around and walk back to the quarry because that's the job. Move blocks. That's it. That's your entire existence during flood season. Some crews are working on the ramp itself, a massive earthen and stone structure that spirals up the side of the pyramid. The ramp allows blocks to be dragged to higher levels as the pyramid grows. It's an engineering marvel, really. The ramp's incline is carefully calculated to be steep enough to save distance, but gentle enough that humans can actually pull loads up it. As the pyramid gets taller, the ramp gets longer and steeper. Eventually, moving blocks to the top will require pulling them up a ramp that's hundreds of yards long. You don't think about this, because thinking about it makes you want to cry. Lunch break comes around midday. You're given bread, onions, and beer. You sit in the minimal shade of a partially completed wall and eat mechanically. The food tastes like sand because everything tastes like sand. The beer is warm and thick. You drink it anyway because you're desperately thirsty. Around you, thousands of other workers are doing the same thing, sitting, eating, too tired to talk. The silence is eerie given how many people are present. After lunch, you're assigned to a different task, hauling stone chips and debris away from the construction site. This is somehow worse than moving blocks because the debris is carried in baskets on your back and you make dozens of trips up and down the work site, your legs burning, your back aching. The debris is dumped in piles that will eventually be used to build the ramp or to fill in areas around the pyramid base. By mid-afternoon, you're not thinking anymore. You're just moving. Your body has entered a state beyond exhaustion where you're functioning on autopilot, one foot in front of the other. Pick up basket, carry basket, dump basket, return, repeat. You're a machine made of meat and suffering. The foreman is always there, always watching, always shouting. He's got a wooden rod that he uses to encourage workers who are slacking. You've been hit before a sharp crack across the shoulders that left bruises for a week. You move faster to avoid being hit again. The foreman isn't evil. He's just a middle manager with quotas to meet and a boss who will punish him if those quotas aren't met. The hierarchy of suffering extends all the way up to Pharaoh, who presumably doesn't suffer at all. Late afternoon, there's an accident. A rope snaps while a crew is pulling a block up the ramp. The sudden release of tension causes two workers to fall backward. One tumbles down the ramp and breaks his leg. You hear the snap from 50 yards away. The other falls under the sledge as the block slides backward. He's crushed instantly, dead before he can scream. Work stops for maybe 5 minutes while the body is removed and the injured man is carried away. Then work resumes because the schedule doesn't care about casualties. You've seen this before, you'll see it again. Construction is dangerous and safety measures are minimal. People die regularly, crushed by blocks, falling from heights, succumbing to heat stroke. The deaths are recorded by scribes because record keeping is important. But the workers are replaceable. There are always more workers. The pyramid must be built. That's what matters. Evening finally arrives. The foreman releases your crew. You've been working for 12 hours with one meal break. You're so tired you can barely walk. Your body is a collection of pain points, shoulders, back, legs, feet, hands. Everything hurts. You join the stream of workers leaving the site, thousands of exhausted men shuffling through the sand toward their villages. You don't feel pride in your work. You don't feel like you're contributing to something eternal and magnificent. You feel like you're surviving another day of forced labor in exchange for barely enough food to keep you alive until tomorrow, when you'll do it all again. The pyramid will stand for 4,500 years. Your name won't be on it. You'll be forgotten, one of tens of thousands of anonymous laborers who built monuments for god-kings. Your suffering will create something eternal, but the eternity won't include you, just the stones, just the tomb, just Pharaoh's path to immortality, built on your back. You're not building a pyramid, you're being consumed by one. Let's talk about the heat, which is the real enemy here. We're talking 100 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit, 43 degrees Celsius. During summer, every single day, the sun is merciless. There's no shade at the worksite. You're building a pyramid in the open desert. You're wearing a linen skirt and maybe a linen head covering, and that's it. No shirt because it's too hot. The sand reflects the heat back at you. The stones you're moving have been baking in the sun and are hot enough to burn your hands. You sweat constantly, losing salt and water, and the hydration breaks are inadequate at best. The heat in Egypt isn't like heat in humid climates. It's dry heat, which people always say like, it's better. It's not better. It's different, and in some ways worse. Dry heat means sweat evaporates instantly, which cools you slightly, but also means you don't realize how much water you're losing. You can become dangerously dehydrated without feeling particularly wet or sticky. Your body is leaking fluids at an alarming rate, and you won't know you're in trouble until you're already dying. The day starts hot. By 6 a.m., it's already 85 degrees Fahrenheit. By 10 a.m., it's over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. By noon, it's 110 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. The temperature peaks in early afternoon, then gradually decreases but never gets comfortable. Even at midnight, it's still 80 degrees Fahrenheit. There's no relief, no cool evening breeze. Just endless, oppressive heat that makes existing feel like an active punishment. The sun is the dominant feature of your life. Not metaphorically, literally. Ra, the sun god, is the most powerful deity in the Egyptian pantheon because the sun is the most powerful force in your daily experience. It rises every morning and immediately begins trying to kill you. By midday, looking directly at the sky is impossible, the glare is blinding. The light bounces off the pale limestone blocks, off the sand, off every reflective surface, creating a landscape of painful brightness. You're wearing coal eyeliner, thick black lines around your eyes made from ground minerals mixed with oil. Everyone wears this, men and women, workers and nobles. It's not a fashion statement, though it does look striking. It's practical. The black coal reduces sun glare the same way modern athletes use eye black. It also has antibacterial properties that help prevent eye infections. Eye infections are common because the combination of sun, sand, wind, and flies creates perfect conditions for bacteria. Trachoma, conjunctivitis, and other eye diseases are endemic. The coal helps, but it's not a cure. Your eyes are still red, irritated, and constantly watering. The stones you're moving have been sitting in direct sunlight for hours. Limestone absorbs and holds heat. By midday, the surface temperature of a limestone block can exceed 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Touching it with bare hands results in burns. You learn quickly to touch stones as briefly as possible, to use your linen kilt as a barrier when pushing, to keep your skin away from hot stone. Despite precautions, you've got burn marks on your palms and forearms. They heal slowly and poorly because you keep burning yourself again. Your clothing is minimal but strategic. The linen kilt is light-coloured, which reflects some sunlight. It's loose, allowing air circulation around your legs. Some workers wrap linen around their heads, creating a makeshift turban that shades their face and neck. This helps marginally, but there's no clothing that makes 110 degrees Fahrenheit heat comfortable. You're just managing degrees of misery. Sweat pours off you constantly. Your skin is always damp, though the sweat evaporates so quickly you never feel truly soaked. You're losing fluid at a rate that would shock modern physiologists, maybe 2 to 3 litres per hour during heavy labour in peak heat. You're drinking beer and water constantly, but it's never enough. Chronic mild dehydration is your baseline state. You're always thirsty. Your urine is dark and concentrated when you can produce urine, which isn't always. Sometimes your body is so water depleted that you don't urinate for an entire workday. Heat exhaustion is common. You see it daily, men who stop sweating, which is a bad sign. Sweating means your body is still trying to cool itself. When you stop sweating, it means your cooling system has failed. The man's skin becomes hot and dry. He gets confused, dizzy, weak. If he's lucky, someone notices and gets him to shade with water. If he's not lucky, heat exhaustion progresses to heat stroke. His body temperature rises to dangerous levels, 105 degrees Fahrenheit, 106 degrees Fahrenheit. His brain starts cooking. He has seizures. He falls unconscious. He dies. You've seen heat stroke kill men. One moment they're working, the next they're staggering, confused. Minutes later they collapse. Some recover, many don't. The priests say the sun god has claimed them, which is poetic but not helpful. The reality is that human bodies have limits, and working in 110 degrees Fahrenheit heat exceeds those limits. You're all constantly flirting with the edge of survival. The worksite provides water, but not enough. Large pottery jars are stationed around the site, filled with Nile water that's been carried up by dedicated water bearers. You're allowed to drink during designated breaks and occasionally between if the foreman is merciful. The water is warm, there's no ice, no refrigeration, no way to cool it. Warm water is better than no water, but it's not satisfying. You drink it anyway, huge gulps that make your stomach slosh. Salt loss is another problem nobody understands. When you sweat, you lose salt along with water. Your body needs salt to function. It regulates fluid balance, nerve function, muscle contraction. Lose too much salt and you get cramps, weakness, confusion. Ancient Egyptians don't understand electrolytes, but they've noticed that eating salty foods helps workers endure heat. So your rations include salted fish sometimes, and onions which contain minerals. It's accidental sports nutrition, arrived at through trial and error over generations. The limestone dust is another heat-related hazard. When stones are being cut and shaped, fine limestone dust fills the air. In the heat, you're breathing heavily, gasping in huge lungfuls of dusty air. The dust coats your throat and lungs. Over years, this causes respiratory problems, chronic coughing, difficulty breathing, eventually respiratory failure. Silicosis, though you don't have a word for it. You just know that old workers cough constantly and can't work as hard. You're young now, but you're becoming an old worker with every dusty breath. Shade is precious and rare. During breaks, everyone clusters in the minimal shade cast by the pyramid itself or by temporary fabric shelters. The shade is crowded, dozens of men packed into a small shadow, sitting shoulder to shoulder because being in shade is worth the discomfort of proximity. The shade is maybe 10-15 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than direct sun, which makes it merely miserable instead of lethal. Some workers try to work at night to avoid the heat. Night work happens sometimes by torchlight, but it's dangerous and inefficient. You can't see well enough to work safely. Accidents increase. The light from oil lamps and torches is dim and flickering. You're more likely to drop a stone or fall off a ramp. So most work happens during daylight, which means most work happens in terrible heat. Your body adapts, somewhat. After weeks of heat exposure, you acclimatize. You sweat more efficiently. Your blood volume increases slightly. Your heart rate at rest decreases. But acclimatization only goes so far. You're still working in conditions that push human physiology to its limits. Acclimatization means you're less likely to die, not that you're comfortable. At night, you sleep outside because your mud brick house is too hot. The walls have absorbed heat all day and radiate it back all night. Inside is an oven. Outside is merely hot. You lie on a reed mat under the stars, a thin linen sheet over you, and try to sleep despite the heat. Sometimes there's a breeze. Usually there isn't. You sleep fitfully, waking multiple times, your body too hot to achieve deep rest. You dream sometimes about cold, about snow, which you've heard about from travellers but never seen, about cool water, not warm Nile water, but actually cold water, about shade that's genuinely cool instead of just less hot. These dreams are pleasant until you wake up and remember where you are. The heat is inescapable. It's present every moment of every day. It shapes every decision: when to work, what to wear, how much to drink, where to sleep. It's the dominant feature of your existence, more influential than Pharaoh, more powerful than the gods. The heat is Egypt, and Egypt is slowly cooking you alive. You're not living in the heat. You're surviving it, day by day, hour by hour, hoping your body holds out long enough to see tomorrow. The heat doesn't care if you survive. It just burns and burns and burns, indifferent to your suffering, eternal and merciless as the sun itself. You and 20 other workers are assigned to a sledge, a wooden platform with a stone block on it. Ropes are attached. Your job is to pull. You lean into the rope, dig your feet into the sand, and pull with everything you have. The stone doesn't want to move. When it finally does, it's inch by agonizing inch. Someone pours water on the sand in front of the sledge to reduce friction. This actually works, which is more than you can say for most of your tools. You pull for hours. Your shoulders scream. Your back locks up. Your hands bleed from rope burn. Let's break down exactly what's involved in moving a 2.5-ton stone block across desert sand, using only human muscle power and ancient technology. It's physics, except the physics are working entirely against you and your only response is to pull harder and hope you don't die. The sledge is constructed from acacia wood, one of the few trees that grows in Egypt. It's essentially a large wooden pallet with runners on the bottom, like a sled. The runners distribute the weight of the stone across a wider area than the stone itself, which theoretically reduces how deep the sledge sinks into the sand. Theoretically. In practice, the sledge still sinks. The sand is soft and yielding. Every inch forward requires overcoming both the weight of the stone and the resistance of sand that doesn't want to let the sledge move. The stone block is roughly rectangular, maybe 4 feet by 3 feet by 2 feet, weighing approximately 2.5 tons, 5,000 pounds. To put that in perspective, that's about the weight of a modern SUV. You're pulling an SUV through sand using rope, with your body. No wheels. No mechanical advantage beyond a wooden sled. It's insane. But it's your job. Ropes are attached to the front of the sledge. The ropes are made from twisted papyrus or flax fibers, strong but rough. Very rough. The rope is thick, maybe 2 inches in diameter, and you need that thickness because thin rope would simply snap under the load. 20 men line up along 2 ropes, 10 per rope. You wrap the rope around your shoulders and upper back, creating a harness. Some workers use a padded band, a strip of linen folded multiple times between the rope and their skin. This helps prevent rope burn, marginally. The foreman gives the signal. Everyone leans forward, taking up the slack in the rope. You feel the weight immediately. It's like leaning against a wall that's also trying to pull you backward. You dig your feet into the sand, searching for traction. Your toes grip. Your leg muscles engage. You lean further forward, nearly horizontal, rope cutting into your shoulders. Pull! The foreman shouts. You pull. Everyone pulls. The stone doesn't move. You pull harder. Still nothing. It's not that the stone is too heavy mathematically. 20 men can generate enough force to move it. It's that you're not pulling together. Half the crew pulls a split second before the other half. The forces cancel out. The stone sits there, mocking you. The foreman shouts again, this time with rhythm. Heave! 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 This is better. Everyone pulls on. Heave. The combined force is applied simultaneously. The sledge lurches, just a few inches, but it moves. Success feels disproportionate to the achievement. You've moved 2.5 tons, approximately 6 inches. Only 399 yards and 2 feet to go. Someone ahead, a water bearer, pours water from a large pottery jar onto the sand in front of the sledge. This seems wasteful until you see the effect. The wet sand compacts, becoming firmer. The runners of the sledge don't sink as deep. The friction decreases significantly. Modern experiments have confirmed this. Wetting sand reduces friction by up to 50%. Ancient Egyptians didn't know the physics, but they knew it worked. You pull again. Heave, heave, heave. The sledge moves more easily now, sliding forward a foot at a time. You establish a rhythm. Pull, rest, 2 seconds. Pull, pull, rest, pull. It's almost meditative if you ignore the pain and the heat and the rope cutting into your flesh and the fact that you're essentially a human draft animal. Your shoulders are on fire within minutes. The rope, despite the linen padding, is abrading your skin. You can feel wetness, blood, or sweat, or both, soaking into your kilt. Your hands, gripping the rope for stability, are being rubbed raw. Rope burn is a guaranteed outcome of this work. Everyone has scarred, calloused shoulders and hands. It's the mark of a stone hauler, visible proof of your profession. Your back is the next thing to go. You're pulling while leaning forward at a steep angle. This puts enormous strain on your lower back, your spinal erectors, your lats. Your entire posterior chain is engaged maximally. After 30 minutes, your back is cramping. After an hour, it's locked up. You can barely straighten when you take breaks. You'll hobble bent over for the next 3 days until your back reluctantly forgives you for this abuse. Your legs are doing more work than you realized. Every step forward requires pushing off from a sandy surface that offers poor traction. Your calves and quads are burning. You're essentially doing a sustained lunge walk while pulling thousands of pounds. Your glutes are cramping. Your hamstrings are threatening to snap like old rope. The heat amplifies everything. The exertion generates body heat. The sun generates environmental heat. The stone you're pulling has been baking in the sun and radiates heat. You're in a convergence of heat sources, sweating profusely, losing fluid faster than you can replace it. Your vision blurs. Your head pounds. You're not sure if you're going to pass out, or vomit, or both. The crew includes a caller, someone whose job is to maintain the rhythm. He chants something about Pharaoh and the gods and Egypt's glory. You don't listen to the words, you listen to the rhythm. Pull on the beat. Rest between beats. The rhythm keeps everyone synchronized. Without it, you're 20 individuals pulling at random. With it, you're a machine, albeit a machine made of meat and suffering. Halfway to the pyramid base, someone collapses, just drops the rope and falls. The sudden loss of his pulling power creates a jerk in the rope that throws everyone off rhythm. The sledge stops. The foreman runs over to the collapsed worker, shouting at him to get up. The worker doesn't respond. Heat exhaustion, probably. Someone drags him to the minimal shade and pours water on his face. The crew continues with 19 men instead of 20. The load is redistributed. You're now pulling slightly more weight per person. Your shoulders notice immediately. The sledge occasionally hits obstacles, rocks, depressions in the sand, debris. When this happens, the sledge stalls or tilts. Everyone has to stop, the obstacle has to be removed or circumvented, and then you start pulling again. Each stop and start is agonizing because starting from a dead stop requires more force than maintaining momentum. You learn to hate obstacles with a passion usually reserved for enemies and diseases. The water bearer runs out of water. Now you're pulling across dry sand again. The friction increases dramatically. Progress slows to a crawl. The foreman screams at another water bearer to get more water immediately. Everyone waits, still leaning into the ropes, maintaining tension because if you release tension, you'll have to overcome static friction again. Your muscles are locked in place, trembling, burning, while you wait for water that takes 5 minutes to arrive. Your hands are bleeding. The rope has worn through your calluses, and you have significant calluses built up over weeks of this work and opened up your palms. Blood makes the rope slippery, which makes gripping harder, which makes you grip tighter, which makes the bleeding worse. You'll wrap your hands in linen strips tonight, but that won't heal them. Tomorrow you'll bleed again. This is just how it is. 3 hours in, you reach the pyramid base. The stone is unloaded by a different crew using wooden levers, long poles wedged under the stone to lift and shift it. This is skilled work, done by experienced workers who understand leverage and balance. Your job was transportation. Their job is placement. The stone will be positioned with millimeter precision, fitting perfectly with adjacent stones. The precision is remarkable, honestly. The entire pyramid is constructed to tolerances that would be impressive even with modern tools. But you don't care about precision right now. You care that the rope is off your shoulders. You care that you can straighten your back, even though straightening sends lightning bolts of pain through your spine. You care that you can stop moving for a few minutes. You look at your shoulders in the sunlight. The skin is abraded, raw, bleeding in spots. You've got rope indentations that will last for days. Your hands look like you've been fighting a lion. Your legs are trembling from exhaustion. You're drenched in sweat, covered in sand, bleeding from multiple points, and so tired you could lie down right here and sleep on the hot sand. The foreman approaches. Good work. Back to the quarry for another block. You want to cry. You want to refuse. You want to quit and walk away and never touch a rope again. But you need the rations. Your family needs the rations. So you turn around and walk back to the quarry, your body screaming protest with every step. This is your job. This is every day during flood season. Moving stones, one after another. Your body slowly destroying itself in service of a pyramid that will stand for millennia, while you'll be dust and bones forgotten by history. But hey, at least you got a workout. The worst CrossFit class in human history, except it's not voluntary and it never ends, and the instructor is a foreman with a stick who will beat you if you slow down. Welcome to pyramid construction. Your body is the machine, and machines break down. The pyramid is 481 feet tall when finished. You're not lifting blocks with cranes, you're dragging them up a massive ramp that spirals around or leads straight up the side. The ramp is packed, earth and rubble, and it gets steeper as the pyramid gets taller. You're hauling 2.5-ton blocks UP this ramp, fighting gravity and physics and every rational thought in your head that says this is impossible. It's not impossible, it's just barely possible, which is somehow worse. The ramp is long, hot, and crowded with workers, and one wrong step means you're tumbling down with a stone block chasing you. The ramp is an engineering marvel and a physical nightmare. It's humanity's solution to the problem of how do we get stones to the top of a structure that's taller than anything humans have ever built? The answer is build a really, really long inclined plane and drag the stones up it using human muscle power. It works. But calling it works is being generous to the concept of works. There are different theories about ramp design, straight ramps, spiral ramps, internal ramps. The truth is, different pyramids probably use different designs. The pyramid you're working on uses a spiral ramp that wraps around the structure. As the pyramid gets taller, the ramp gets longer to maintain a manageable angle. Currently, the ramp is about 800 yards long to reach the working level 200 feet up. When the pyramid reaches its full height of 481 feet, the ramp will be over 2,000 yards long, more than a mile of inclined slope. The ramp is constructed from desert rubble, limestone chips, and dirt, compacted and reinforced with wooden beams at stress points. The surface is periodically watered to keep it firm and reduce dust. It's wide enough for crews to pass each other, one crew pulling a block up, another crew returning down to get another block. The width is maybe 20 feet, which sounds generous until you remember that you're sharing it with stone blocks, sledges, ropes, water bearers, foremen, and dozens of other workers. The angle of the ramp is crucial. Too steep, and humans can't pull the loads. Too gentle, and the ramp becomes impractically long. The engineers have settled on an angle of about 110 for every 10 feet of horizontal distance. the ramp rises 1 foot. This is manageable, barely. It means you're pulling a 2.5-ton block up a 10% grade, which doesn't sound terrible until you actually try it. You're assigned to a crew hauling a block up the ramp. There are 40 men on this crew, double the normal number, because pulling uphill requires more force. The ropes are arranged differently, too. Some men pull from the front as usual. Others are positioned along the sides, stabilizing the sledge so it doesn't tip or veer off the ramp. A few men push from the back, adding force and preventing the sledge from sliding backward if forward momentum is lost. The ascent begins. Immediately, you understand why this requires 40 men instead of 20. The angle is slight, but gravity is relentless. You're not just overcoming friction, you're overcoming gravity, pulling the block backward down the slope. Every step forward is fighting a force that wants to pull you backward. Your legs are doing double work, pushing forward and resisting backward pull. The ramp surface is uneven. There are spots where the earth has settled, creating depressions. There are places where rubble pokes through, creating obstacles. The water bearers try to smooth the surface by adding water and patting down rough spots, but it's never perfectly smooth. Every imperfection in the surface translates to a jerk in the ropes, a moment where the block catches and everyone has to pull harder. 20 feet up the ramp, your calves are burning. 40 feet up, your quads are screaming. 60 feet up, you're not sure your legs still exist. As separate anatomical structures, they've merged into a single continuous column of pain, extending from your hips to your feet. You're breathing hard, gulping dusty air. The exertion at this angle is exponentially harder than pulling on flat ground. The crew maintains a steady rhythm, but it's slower than on flat ground. Pull, step, maybe 1 foot per second. At this rate, climbing 200 feet vertically, which requires travelling 2,000 feet along the ramp, will take nearly an hour. An hour of sustained maximum effort, pulling thousands of pounds up a slope in 105 degrees Fahrenheit heat. It's not physically possible, except it is, because you're doing it right now. Halfway up, someone's foot slips. He goes down, falling to his knees. The rope jerks. The sledge lurches. For a horrifying moment, it feels like the block is sliding backward. Everyone leans back on the ropes, digging in, holding the block in place through sheer force of will and terror. The fallen man scrambles to his feet, bleeding from his knees, and gets back on the rope. The climb continues. The danger of the ramp is constant. If a rope breaks while you're on the slope, the block slides backward, picking up speed, crushing anyone in its path. Workers have died this way, you've seen it. The block tumbles down the ramp, a multi-ton missile of stone, and there's no escaping it if you're in its path. The crews below have to watch constantly for runaway blocks and scatter if they see one coming. It's happened often enough that everyone's developed an instinct for looking upslope periodically, checking for danger. The ramp is also crowded. Crews are ascending and descending constantly. You have to coordinate with other crews to pass, without tangling ropes or colliding. Sometimes crews have to stop and wait while another crew passes. Every stop is dangerous because restarting requires overcoming static friction on an incline, which requires even more force. You learn to time your ascent to avoid, stopping if possible, even if it means pulling harder to catch up with gaps in traffic. The sides of the ramp have no railings, no barriers. It's just a drop. On the lower sections, falling off the ramp means a 10-foot fall onto rocky ground, painful, possibly fatal. On the higher sections, it's a 50-foot or 100-foot or 200-foot fall onto rubble, stone and sand. Fatal, definitely fatal. Workers hug the center of the ramp instinctively, staying as far from the edges as possible. But when you're pulling with maximum effort, exhausted, vision blurred by sweat, It's easy to drift toward an edge without realizing it. Dust is a constant problem. Every footstep kicks up dust. Every sledge passing raises a cloud of dust. The entire ramp is shrouded in a haze of limestone dust, desert sand, and pulverized rubble. You're breathing this constantly. Your throat is coated with dust. You cough, trying to clear it, but the coughing just pulls more dust into your lungs. You'll be coughing up grey phlegm tonight, and tomorrow, and probably for the rest of your life, however long that is. 3/4 of the way up, your vision starts to tunnel. The combination of heat, exertion, dust, and dehydration is pushing you toward heat exhaustion. You're not sweating as much as you should be, which is a bad sign. Your skin feels hot and dry. You're dizzy. The foreman notices he's experienced enough to recognize the signs and pulls you off the rope. Someone else takes your place. You're guided to the side of the ramp and given water. You drink, but your body doesn't want it. You force it down. You sit in the minimal shade cast by the pyramid and wait for your body to decide whether it's going to recover or shut down completely. You recover, barely. 10 minutes later, you're back on the rope. The crew has made it to the working level at 200 feet. The block is unloaded. Your part is done. Now comes the descent. Going down is faster, but almost as dangerous. You're walking down a slope, which puts pressure on your knees and the fronts of your feet. Your toes jam into the front of your sandals. Your knees absorb impact with every step. By the time you reach the bottom, your knees feel like they've been hammered. You'll have knee problems for the rest of your life, probably. Most older workers limp from knee damage accumulated over years of ramp work. At the bottom, the foreman assigns your crew to another block. You want to quit. You want to lie down and die. But you need the rations, so you grab the rope and start pulling again. Another block, another ascent, another hour of suffering. The ramp is humanity's worst invention because it works. If it didn't work, you wouldn't have to use it. But it does work, which means you spend your days hauling stones up an ever-lengthening incline, fighting gravity and heat and exhaustion, slowly destroying your body in service of moving stones from ground level to heights that humans were never meant to reach without modern equipment. The pyramid rises, block by block, pulled up this terrible ramp by thousands of workers who will never be remembered. The ramp makes the pyramid possible. The ramp also makes your life a living hell. But the pyramid must be built. The God King must have his eternal tomb. And you must pull and climb and suffer until your body gives out or the pyramid is finished, whichever comes first. Probably your body. The foreman is a middle manager with a stick and a bad attitude. His job is to make sure you work fast enough to meet quotas. He doesn't care that you're exhausted. He doesn't care that it's 110 degrees Fahrenheit. He doesn't care that you're essentially doing the work of machines using Stone Age technology. He cares about his boss, who cares about his boss, who cares about Pharaoh, who is a living god and therefore beyond caring about you. The foreman yells. He threatens. Sometimes he hits. You learn quickly that complaining is pointless. Let's talk about the foreman, whose name is Seneb. You know his name because he shouts it constantly. I am Seneb. I speak with the authority of the overseer. You will work or you will suffer. It's like he's trying to intimidate you through aggressive self-introduction. It works, unfortunately. Seneb is not someone you want to anger. Seneb is maybe 35 years old, which makes him elderly by construction worker standards. He's got the build of someone who used to do manual labour and now mostly yells at people who do manual labour. Muscular, but developing a belly, skin leathered from decades of sun exposure, missing several teeth from years of eating sandy bread. He wears a slightly nicer linen kilt than you, longer, cleaner, with fewer stains. This marks him as higher status. He also wears a bronze amulet around his neck, probably depicting a god. This is both religious devotion and a status symbol. Bronze is expensive. Seneb carries a rod, not a ceremonial staff, a practical hitting rod, made from hardwood, about 3 feet long, thick as your thumb. He uses it frequently. The rod is both symbol and tool. When he's walking around supervising, the rod is visible, a constant reminder of his authority. When someone's slacking or moving too slowly, or just unlucky enough to be in his sight when he's in a bad mood, the rod becomes a weapon. You've been hit by the rod. Everyone has. It's part of working here. Seneb walks up behind you while you're pulling and thwacks you across the shoulders. Not hard enough to cause serious injury, he can't afford to break workers, but hard enough to hurt, to leave bruises, to send a message. Faster, pull faster. Do you think Pharaoh has eternity to wait for you? Seneb isn't cruel for cruelty's sake. He's cruel because he's under pressure. He reports to an overseer, who reports to a chief overseer, who reports to the vizier, who reports to Pharaoh. All the way up this hierarchy, people are demanding results. Quotas must be met. A certain number of blocks must be moved per day. If Seneb's crews don't meet quota, Seneb faces consequences, reduced pay, demotion, possibly physical punishment. So Seneb transfers that pressure downward to you, violently if necessary. The quotas are insane. You're expected to move a certain number of blocks per day, regardless of heat, accidents, equipment failures, or the fact that you're human beings with physical limits. The quotas were probably determined by some scribe with an abacus who calculated theoretical maximum productivity and then added 20% because why not make it really impossible? Seneb has to enforce these impossible standards, which makes him perpetually angry because the quotas are barely achievable even when everything goes perfectly, and nothing ever goes perfectly. Seneb plays favourites. There are some workers he likes, usually the strongest, fastest ones, who make him look good to his superiors. These workers get slightly easier assignments, slightly longer breaks, and fewer beatings. Then there are workers Seneb dislikes. Maybe they complained once, maybe they're slower, maybe Seneb just doesn't like their face. These workers get the worst assignments, constant abuse, and beatings for minor infractions. You're in the middle tier, not favoured, not targeted. You're invisible, which is actually the best position. Being invisible to Seneb means being left alone. You work hard enough to avoid attention, but not so hard that he expects exceptional performance from you every day. It's a careful balance. Seneb has a whistle, a small clay whistle he blows to signal breaks, to stop work during accidents, to get everyone's attention. The whistle is shrill and piercing, and you've come to hate it with a passion. The whistle controls your day. It signals when to start, when to break, when to resume. You're Pavlov's dog, except instead of salivating, you cringe when you hear the whistle because it usually precedes bad news or more work. During the midday break, Seneb sits in shade while you sit in sun. He drinks from a pottery cup that looks cleaner than yours. He eats bread that's probably fresher than yours. He's not wealthy, but he's better off than you. Middle management has privileges. One of those privileges is shade. Foremen get shade structures, simple fabric awnings held up by poles. Workers get whatever shade they can find, which is usually nothing. Seneb occasionally addresses the crew with motivational speeches. You are building for eternity. You are serving the God King. Your work will be remembered forever. It's propaganda, and everyone knows it. Your work won't be remembered, you won't be remembered. The pyramid will be remembered, but not the thousands of anonymous workers who built it. Seneb knows this too, probably. But he delivers the speech anyway, because maintaining the fiction is part of his job. When accidents happen, and they happen regularly, Seneb's reaction depends on how the accident affects productivity. If a worker is injured but can continue working, Seneb shows minimal concern. If a worker is so badly injured they can't work, Seneb is annoyed because now the crew is short a person and quotas are harder to meet. If a worker dies, Seneb is frustrated by the paperwork. Yes, paperwork. Scribes have to document deaths, update worker roles, arrange for replacement workers. It's administrative burden. Seneb sees deaths primarily as logistical problems. Sometimes Seneb shows glimpses of humanity. Once, you saw him give extra water to a worker who was clearly suffering from heat exhaustion. Another time, he let a crew take a longer break after an accident rattled everyone. These moments are rare. They're exceptions that prove the rule. Seneb's primary loyalty is to productivity and his own career advancement. Being humane is fine when it doesn't interfere with those priorities. When it does interfere, humanity takes a backseat to quota management. Seneb has been doing this job for maybe 10 years. He started as a worker, same as you. He was strong, competent, and caught the eye of his foreman. He was promoted to assistant foreman, then foreman. He's climbed the ladder by being effective, which means being harsh. Nice foremen don't meet quotas. Harsh foremen do. Seneb learned this early and embraced it. He's optimized himself for success within a system that rewards productivity over humanity. You hate Seneb, but you also understand him. He's trapped in the same system you are, just one level higher. He has slightly more power and slightly better conditions, but he's still being crushed by the weight of Pharaoh's ambitions. He takes his misery and passes it down to you. You would do the same if your positions were reversed, probably. Everyone in this hierarchy is both victim and perpetrator, except for Pharaoh at the top, who is only perpetrator, and the workers at the bottom who are only victims. The hierarchy is designed this way deliberately. Each level has just enough power to oppress the level below and just enough fear of the level above to remain obedient. It's a stable system that ensures monuments get built even if thousands of people suffer in the process. From a certain cold, utilitarian perspective, it works. From a human perspective, it's monstrous. Seneb will probably be foreman for another 5 or 10 years. Then his body will give out bad back, bad knees, bad lungs from years of breathing dust. He'll be demoted back to manual labour or dismissed entirely. He'll end up as broken as the workers he supervised. The system consumes everyone eventually. Being foreman just means you get consumed slightly later and slightly more comfortably. But today, Seneb is still foreman. He's still carrying his rod. He's still shouting at you to work faster. And you're still working, because refusing means beatings or worse, and you need those rations. Your foreman is not your friend. He's the human face of a system that sees you as a tool. And like any tool, you'll be used until you break, then discarded and replaced. At least tools don't have to feel pain. So tonight, as you drift off to sleep in your climate-controlled bedroom with your comfortable mattress and your clean sheets, and your reasonable certainty that you won't be crushed by a falling stone block tomorrow, take a moment to think about the workers of ancient Egypt, the ones who woke up before dawn because sleeping past sunrise meant waking up in an oven, the ones who moved 2.5-ton blocks of limestone up impossible ramps in 110-degree heat, the ones who ate the same sandy bread and warm beer every single day until their teeth wore down to nubs and their bodies gave out somewhere around age 35. Because here's the thing about ancient Egypt. It was magnificent and terrible in equal measure. The pyramids are marvels, mathematical precision, architectural genius, monuments that have stood for 4,500 years and will stand for thousands more. They're proof that humans can accomplish impossible things when we work together. They're also proof that humans will accomplish those impossible things on the backs of other humans who have no choice in the matter. The workers who built the pyramids weren't slaves in the traditional sense. They were paid labourers receiving rations for their work. But they also weren't free. You couldn't refuse the work when the flood season came, and farming was impossible. You showed up, or you and your family starved. That's not slavery, but it's not freedom either. It's something in between, a system where survival requires you to destroy your body-building tombs for god kings who will never know your name. And yet, those workers persisted. They woke up every morning knowing that today would be brutal, that the sun would try to kill them, that the stones would break their backs, that the foreman would beat them if they slowed down. And they got up anyway. They wrapped rope around their shoulders. They dug their feet into the sand and they pulled, day after day, year after year, until the pyramid was finished, or until they died, whichever came first. That's not just survival. That's defiance. That's the human spirit, refusing to break even when everything else is breaking. Those workers looked at a 481-foot pyramid, taller than anything humans had ever built, and said, "Fine, we'll build it. We'll move 2.3 million blocks of stone with our bare hands if that's what it takes." And they did it. They actually did it. The pyramids still stand today as testament to their suffering and their strength. Every block is a story of rope burn and heat exhaustion. Every level is a story of backs breaking and knees giving out. Every perfectly placed stone is a story of humans pushing themselves beyond what should be possible because they had no other choice. The pyramids are beautiful. They're also monuments to human endurance in the face of inhuman conditions. Your ancestors, if you go back far enough, everyone's ancestors survived conditions that would destroy most modern people. They survived heat that would hospitalize us. They survived diet that would malnourish us. They survived labor that would cripple us. They survived disease, parasites, accidents, and the general hostility of an environment that was actively trying to kill them. And they didn't just survive, they built things. They created art. They raised children. They found moments of joy in lives defined by suffering. So tonight, as you lie there in your bed that's probably softer than anything an Egyptian worker ever touched, remember what you have. You have clean water that comes out of a tap, no crocodiles, no parasites, no walking a quarter mile with pottery jars balanced on your head. You have food that won't grind down your teeth. You have medicine that actually works instead of honey and prayers. You have clothing that doesn't fill with sand. You have shade and air conditioning and ice and the ability to just be cool. You have weekends. You have worker protections. You have the expectation that you'll probably live past 40. These aren't small things. They're miracles that your ancestors would have wept for. Every time you turn on a faucet, or adjust a thermostat, or take an antibiotic, or sleep past sunrise without consequence, you're living in the future that ancient Egyptian workers could barely imagine. You're living the life they built, indirectly, through centuries of human progress built on the foundation of their suffering. The Nile still flows through Egypt. The pyramids still stand in the desert. But the people who built them are dust. Their names are lost. Their individual stories are forgotten. All that remains is the collective memory. Humans built this. Humans endured this. Humans survived this. And because they survived, because they persisted, because they refused to let impossible conditions break them completely, we're here. Every generation survives just long enough to give the next generation slightly better odds. So tonight, as you drift off to sleep in your climate-controlled bedroom with your comfortable mattress and your clean sheets and your reasonable certainty that you won't be crushed by a falling stone block tomorrow, take a moment to think about the workers of ancient Egypt, the ones who woke up before dawn because sleeping past sunrise meant waking up in an oven. The ones who moved 2.5-ton blocks of limestone up impossible ramps in 110-degree heat. The ones who ate the same sandy bread and warm beer every single day until their teeth wore down to nubs and their bodies gave out somewhere around age 35. Because here's the thing about ancient Egypt. It was magnificent and terrible in equal measure. The pyramids are marvels, mathematical precision, architectural genius, monuments that have stood for 4,500 years and will stand for thousands more. They're proof that humans can accomplish impossible things when we work together. They're also proof that humans will accomplish those impossible things on the backs of other humans who have no choice in the matter. The workers who built the pyramids weren't slaves in the traditional sense. They were paid labourers receiving rations for their work. But they also weren't free. You couldn't refuse the work when the flood season came, and farming was impossible. You showed up, or you and your family starved. That's not slavery, but it's not freedom either. It's something in between, a system where survival requires you to destroy your body-building tombs for god-kings who will never know your name. And yet, those workers persisted. They woke up every morning knowing that today would be brutal, that the sun would try to kill them, that the stones would break their backs, that the foreman would beat them if they slowed down. And they got up anyway. They wrapped rope around their shoulders. They dug their feet into the sand, and they pulled, day after day, year after year, until the pyramid was finished, or until they died, whichever came first. That's not just survival. That's defiance. That's the human spirit, refusing to break even when everything else is breaking. Those workers looked at a 481-foot pyramid, taller than anything humans had ever built, and said, "Fine, we'll build it. We'll move 2.3 million blocks of stone with our bare hands if that's what it takes." And they did it. They actually did it. The pyramids still stand today as testament to their suffering and their strength. Every block is a story of rope burn and heat exhaustion. Every level is a story of backs breaking and knees giving out. Every perfectly placed stone is a story of humans pushing themselves beyond what should be possible because they had no other choice. The pyramids are beautiful. They're also monuments to human endurance in the face of inhuman conditions. Your ancestors, if you go back far enough, everyone's ancestors survived conditions that would destroy most modern people. They survived heat that would hospitalize us. They survived diet that would malnourish us. They survived labor that would cripple us. They survived disease, parasites, accidents, and the general hostility of an environment that was actively trying to kill them. And they didn't just survive, they built things. They created art. They raised children. They found moments of joy in lives defined by suffering. So tonight, as you lie there in your bed that's probably softer than anything an Egyptian worker ever touched, remember what you have. You have clean water that comes out of a tap, no crocodiles, no parasites, no walking a quarter mile with pottery jars balanced on your head. You have food that won't grind down your teeth. You have medicine that actually works instead of honey and prayers. You have clothing that doesn't fill with sand. You have shade and air conditioning and ice and the ability to just be cool. You have weekends. You have worker protections. You have the expectation that you'll probably live past 40. These aren't small things. They're miracles that your ancestors would have wept for. Every time you turn on a faucet, or adjust a thermostat, or take an antibiotic, or sleep past sunrise without consequence, you're living in the future that ancient Egyptian workers could barely imagine. You're living the life they built, indirectly, through centuries of human progress built on the foundation of their suffering. The Nile still flows through Egypt. The pyramids still stand in the desert. But the people who built them are dust. Their names are lost. Their individual stories are forgotten. All that remains is the collective memory. Humans built this. Humans endured this. Humans survived this. And because they survived, because they persisted, because they refused to let impossible conditions break them completely, we're here. Every generation survives just long enough to give the next generation slightly better odds. So tonight, as you drift off to sleep in your climate-controlled bedroom with your comfortable mattress and your clean sheets, and your reasonable certainty that you won't be crushed by a falling stone block tomorrow, take a moment to think about the workers of ancient Egypt, the ones who woke up before dawn because sleeping past sunrise meant waking up in an oven, the ones who moved 2.5-ton blocks of limestone up impossible ramps in 110-degree heat, the ones who ate the same sandy bread and warm beer every single day until their teeth wore down to nubs and their bodies gave out somewhere around age 35. Because here's the thing about ancient Egypt. It was magnificent and terrible in equal measure. The pyramids are marvels, mathematical precision, architectural genius, monuments that have stood for 4,500 years and will stand for thousands more. They're proof that humans can accomplish impossible things when we work together. They're also proof that humans will accomplish those impossible things on the backs of other humans who have no choice in the matter. The workers who built the pyramids weren't slaves in the traditional sense. They were paid laborers receiving rations for their work. But they also weren't free. You couldn't refuse the work when the flood season came and farming was impossible. You showed up, or you and your family starved. That's not slavery, but it's not freedom either. It's something in between, a system where survival requires you to destroy your body-building tombs for god kings who will never know your name. And yet, those workers persisted. They woke up every morning knowing that today would be brutal, that the sun would try to kill them, that the stones would break their backs, that the foreman would beat them if they slowed down. And they got up anyway. They wrapped rope around their shoulders. They dug their feet into the sand and they pulled, day after day, year after year, until the pyramid was finished, or until they died, whichever came first. That's not just survival. That's defiance. That's the human spirit, refusing to break even when everything else is breaking. Those workers looked at a 481-foot pyramid, taller than anything humans had ever built, and said, "Fine, we'll build it. We'll move 2.3 million blocks of stone with our bare hands if that's what it takes." And they did it. They actually did it. The pyramids still stand today as testament to their suffering and their strength. Every block is a story of rope burn and heat exhaustion. Every level is a story of backs breaking and knees giving out. Every perfectly placed stone is a story of humans pushing themselves beyond what should be possible because they had no other choice. The pyramids are beautiful. They're also monuments to human endurance in the face of inhuman conditions. Your ancestors, if you go back far enough, everyone's ancestors survived conditions that would destroy most modern people. They survived heat that would hospitalize us. They survived diet that would malnourish us. They survived labor that would cripple us. They survived disease, parasites, accidents, and the general hostility of an environment that was actively trying to kill them. And they didn't just survive, they built things. They created art. They raised children. They found moments of joy in lives defined by suffering. So tonight, as you lie there in your bed that's probably softer than anything an Egyptian worker ever touched, remember what you have. You have clean water that comes out of a tap, no crocodiles, no parasites, no walking a quarter mile with pottery jars balanced on your head. You have food that won't grind down your teeth. You have medicine that actually works instead of honey and prayers. You have clothing that doesn't fill with sand. You have shade and air conditioning and ice and the ability to just be cool. You have weekends. You have worker protections. You have the expectation that you'll probably live past 40. These aren't small things. They're miracles that your ancestors would have wept for. Every time you turn on a faucet, or adjust a thermostat, or take an antibiotic, or sleep past sunrise without consequence, you're living in the future that ancient Egyptian workers could barely imagine. You're living the life they built, indirectly, through centuries of human progress built on the foundation of their suffering. The Nile still flows through Egypt. The pyramids still stand in the desert, but the people who built them are dust. Their names are lost. Their individual stories are forgotten. All that remains is the collective memory. Humans built this. Humans endured this. Humans survived this. And because they survived, because they persisted, because they refused to let impossible conditions break them completely, we're here. Every generation survives just long enough to give the next generation slightly better odds. So tonight, as you drift off to sleep in your climate-controlled bedroom with your comfortable mattress and your clean sheets and your reasonable certainty that you won't be crushed by a falling stone block tomorrow, take a moment to think about the workers of ancient Egypt, the ones who woke up before dawn because sleeping past sunrise meant waking up in an oven. The ones who moved 2.5-ton blocks of limestone up impossible ramps in 110-degree heat. The ones who ate the same sandy bread and warm beer every single day until their teeth wore down to nubs and their bodies gave out somewhere around age 35. Because here's the thing about ancient Egypt. It was magnificent and terrible in equal measure. The pyramids are marvels, mathematical precision, architectural genius, monuments that have stood for 4,500 years and will stand for thousands more. They're proof that humans can accomplish impossible things when we work together. They're also proof that humans will accomplish those impossible things on the backs of other humans who have no choice in the matter. The workers who built the pyramids weren't slaves in the traditional sense. They were paid laborers receiving rations for their work. But they also weren't free. You couldn't refuse the work when the flood season came and farming was impossible. You showed up, or you and your family starved. That's not slavery, but it's not freedom either. It's something in between, a system where survival requires you to destroy your body-building tombs for god kings who will never know your name. And yet, those workers persisted. They woke up every morning knowing that today would be brutal, that the sun would try to kill them, that the stones would break their backs, that the foreman would beat them if they slowed down. And they got up anyway. They wrapped rope around their shoulders. They dug their feet into the sand and they pulled, day after day, year after year, until the pyramid was finished, or until they died, whichever came first. That's not just survival. That's defiance. That's the human spirit, refusing to break even when everything else is breaking. Those workers looked at a 481-foot pyramid, taller than anything humans had ever built, and said, "Fine, we'll build it. We'll move 2.3 million blocks of stone with our bare hands if that's what it takes." And they did it. They actually did it. The pyramids still stand today as testament to their suffering and their strength. Every block is a story of rope burn and heat exhaustion. Every level is a story of backs breaking and knees giving out. Every perfectly placed stone is a story of humans pushing themselves beyond what should be possible because they had no other choice. The pyramids are beautiful. They're also monuments to human endurance in the face of inhuman conditions. Your ancestors, if you go back far enough, everyone's ancestors survived conditions that would destroy most modern people. They survived heat that would hospitalize us. They survived diet that would malnourish us. They survived labor that would cripple us. They survived disease, parasites, accidents, and the general hostility of an environment that was actively trying to kill them. And they didn't just survive, they built things. They created art. They raised children. They found moments of joy in lives defined by suffering. So tonight, as you lie there in your bed that's probably softer than anything an Egyptian worker ever touched, remember what you have. You have clean water that comes out of a tap, no crocodiles, no parasites, no walking a quarter mile with pottery jars balanced on your head. You have food that won't grind down your teeth. You have medicine that actually works instead of honey and prayers. You have clothing that doesn't fill with sand. You have shade and air conditioning and ice and the ability to just be cool. You have weekends. You have worker protections. You have the expectation that you'll probably live past 40. These aren't small things. They're miracles that your ancestors would have wept for. Every time you turn on a faucet, or adjust a thermostat, or take an antibiotic, or sleep past sunrise without consequence, you're living in the future that ancient Egyptian workers could barely imagine. You're living the life they built, indirectly, through centuries of human progress built on the foundation of their suffering. The Nile still flows through Egypt. The pyramids still stand in the desert. But the people who built them are dust. Their names are lost. Their individual stories are forgotten. All that remains is the collective memory. Humans built this. Humans endured this. Humans survived this. And because they survived, because they persisted, because they refused to let impossible conditions break them completely, we're here. Every generation survives just long enough to give the next generation slightly better odds.